was in a bookshop recently. It's something I often do, in fairness, because I don't know if you know this, enjoy reading. I enjoy reading a lot. When I say a lot, I don't enjoy reading a lot of things, I enjoy reading things. And I find myself occasionally drawn to bookshops just to see what's there. Perhaps rarely buy anything from a new bookshop because I would be spending a lot of money, and that's a story for a different time about my old book purchasing habits. So I tend to buy books in charity shops, and it's because of that disconnect between my book loving and how I buy them that I hadn't realised that something was vanishing, and that something is this. Not horror books, because there are a lot of those. I mean, you just have to go into any high street bookshop, assuming you've got a high street bookshop, and you will see shelf after shelf after shelf after shelf of horror novels. It's the size of the book. Now, I'm a fan of form factor and different sizes of things. I've talked about it previously in videos, and I've done about handheld consoles, about the comic book thing, obsession that I have, that type of thing. But I hadn't really noticed that there were fewer of these on the shelves. In fact, none of these on the shelves in the new bookshop that I visited. New as in they sell new books, not as in it was a bookshop that had just opened. And it got me thinking, what happened to this? The mass market paperback. And I did a bit of research. By that I used Google. And I don't know if you know this, but the internet is full of useful information as long as you look for it and don't just go with what Google or Chrome AI or whatever it's called tells you in the first result. If you go looking, you'll see more. Found an article on Publishers Weekly from December last year that explains that the mass market unit sales are in decline. It's gone from 131 million in 2004 to 21 million in 2024, a drop of 84% over 20 years. Sales through to October of last year were about 15 million units, and despite the fact that it was a well-respected format, according to the former EVP of Penguin Random House, it's fallen by the wayside. And it got me thinking, why? Because the idea of these were that they were cheap and they were pocketable. You could put them in your pocket. They were known in some areas as pocket books. This one, as an example, I mean, this is the first pan book of horror stories, which were a very popular series. This is an edition from, see, I should have this down as notes. I don't do notes. We don't do notes around here. This is an edition from 1980. Yeah. And it was first published, according to this, I can barely read it, in 1959. But it was £1.25, which was incredibly cheap for a book back in today when it was published. And I saw a video when I was researching this that said that the original idea of mass market paperbacks was that they would be available outside of a bookshop, hence the mass market term, I guess, for less than the price of a pack of cigarettes back in the day. Again, I think the video that I saw had prices of about 25 cents on the back of it, which makes it easily accessible for the majority of people. And it was different to the other market that you would quite commonly see of the hardback. Now this is a hardback copy of Alan Moore's The Great When. I bought this for £1, not brand new. I bought it in a charity shop for £1, which is where I tend to get most of my books from. The recommended retail price on the inside cover is £20. And I know that bookshops do, like buy one get one half price, or buy one get one free, or if you're going to a like a supermarket and look at their book section, it's any book for £6 or 2 for £6 or whatever the deal happens to be. But we're looking at recommended retail price here, not store deductions, because that's a story for another time. So there was a point at which the mass market outsold the hardback and outsold the more at the time this would have been, so we're looking at probably the 80s, I would guess. The 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they would outsell the other format that had just been introduced, which we know as the trade paperback, not to be confused with the term used for comic book collections, which are bigger. So you had just to recap for size purposes, you had hardback. Again, these come in a variety of sizes, but this is, when I think of a hardback book, this is what I'm thinking of. You had the trade paperback, well no you didn't, you had the mass market paperback, a lot smaller, you couldn't put that in your jeans pocket. You could probably squeeze that in your jeans pocket, just not with a mobile phone and and your wallet and your house keys and that type of thing. But you know, a jacket pocket, you could put that in. In fact, I have. Sometimes if I go to a coffee shop and don't take a bag with me, I'll grab this. And then you have, in between, the trade paperback, slightly bigger than the mass market, slightly smaller than the hardback. And this format is the one you're most likely to see in bookshops these days. Here we go. This is a more recent novel than than Jay Carnett's The Long Firm. But again, this is the Curfew, the first T.M. Logan novel that I read. Very, very good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Got a few more. We'll read them. But again, same size, different era. And so the books have fallen off. The mass market has fallen off, and it could be argued that one of the reasons is the good old e-reader. Now, this is my ancient Kindle, but again, if you have a look at it, it's a very similar size to the mass market. And obviously, you know, I can fit that in a jacket pocket, and again, I have on multiple occasions. Unlike this, I can carry hundreds, if not thousands, of books on one device. Not that I'm going to read hundreds or thousands of books when I'm in a coffee shop. I'm not going to read one book in a coffee shop. I'm going to read a few chapters at best. But it's very much like this, the idea of putting this in the pocket, convenience, and also it's cheap. Well, is it cheap? Yeah, I guess so. You know, Amazon in particular, they do various deals where you can get, you know, and they do a first, I think they call it First Select, where at the first of every month you get a link and you can download one of the books. Occasionally it's authors you've heard of, most of the time it isn't. They do the deal of the day thing, I believe, still do the deal of the day thing, where it's a book for a couple of quid. There are offers on a number of books, sales and all that type of thing, and in reality that's how, in an ideal world, I should read books, in that I should buy things that I'm going to read in the very near future. But as Book Talk and Book YouTube tells me, we don't do that. We have a to finish pile. This is a digital to finish pile for me, because I've got so many books on it that I haven't read, just to show you that it is in there, just in case you thought it was just a case. And it is charged. Look at that, you can see the screen. It's the same with print books. I have lots of books that I've not read, but I love owning them. I mean, I will at some point read a lot of these, but I love owning things, and that's why I'm so disappointed to see the mass market disappear. Now, admittedly, if you go into any charity shop, any second-hand book to retailer, they're going to have thousands of damn things because they were around for decades, but you're not going to see them in a new bookshop. Also, part of me, it's something I've noticed recently, and not particularly from any particular author. I think it's just an industry standard, in that the book covers have become much less interesting. If you have a look at this one, that's scary. Yeah, now it's like, oh, alright, the Curfew, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I read this really, really quickly, surprisingly quickly, but it's a couple of houses. And that seems to be a common theme with this type of book. You get these, I wouldn't say homogenised covers, but they all look much of a muchness. This is set in a housing estate, a private one. You know, like, well, not like a council estate, but an estate of private housing for most of it, for part of it. But do I need the houses on the cover to tell me that? there were so many more interesting things from the book itself where I was thinking, oh, that would make a much more interesting cover. It's about a group of friends, one of whom lies, and something bad happens. There's lies, there's deceit, some of the adults are involved, some of the adults are trying to find out the truth. There's blame and counter accusations and all that type of thing. There were so many elements of it that would have made a better cover than. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a nice picture. It's a picture of a house with the sun coming, two houses with the sun coming through in between them. But that cover doesn't really say to me, taut and tension-packed, digs deep into every parent's nightmares. It's a great book, though. And you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but there is the thing of it, a nice cover is a nice thing to see. Yeah, so, like I say, there was a time when mass markets outsold trade paperback and hardback. And we're talking millions. They outsold it by millions, not just a few copies. But we've seen a drop in it. And so this article says, Esther Margulies, another former Bantam executive who later started Newmarket Press, cites the three factors that led to the growth of mass market paperbacks. One was the adoption of production practices and manufacturing techniques used by magazine and newspaper publishers to print the standard paperbacks in huge quantities quickly and cheaply. There was a time when, if you've heard the term pulp fiction, it comes from this type of size because they were printed on a lower quality wood pulp paper. Not newsprint, but not far detached from it. And the idea of newsprint was that, especially for, is that it was cheap. It was cheap to print. It wasn't permanent on the page. The books were, as far as I'm aware, permanent on the page. But you could basically, if you with an old newspaper, and I'm assuming with new ones as well, you used to be able to rub your finger across it and get rid of the print. It would smudge. So it was cheaply produced, whereas more expensive print obviously was more permanent. What's the term? Indelible, probably. The second factor was distribution. Publishers employing a network of more than 600 independent distributor wholesalers to deliver inventory to some 100,000 outlets where magazines and newspapers were sold. Again, this was in the United States. The non-bookstore outlets included newsstands, variety stores, gas stations, supermarkets, and shopping malls. We saw a similar thing with videos back in today. You had your video shop, but you could also, there were corner shops that used to have racks of videos that you could rent. I'm assuming they did with DVDs as well. So it was beyond the specialist retailer. In fact, comic books were the same. You had your comic book shop, but also you had newsagents that used to sell American-sized comic books for a similar price. So this was, I think it was called direct distribution. May not have been. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I've got that wrong. But the idea that you could just pick up, the latest Batman comic from America in your local newsagents instead of having to traipse to your local, comic book shop. There was something lovely about that, and the same with books. There was something great about going through a book rack and seeing what was in there and being sold for a couple of quid. Obviously, book clubs and school book fairs did that, and then there was the agreement that hardbacks would eventually be negotiated for publication as a mass market, which still exists with trade paperbacks. You can still buy hardback versions of books, and then a few months later they come out as trade paperbacks. There were authors that just released in, as far as I'm aware, in a mass market, but if they were making the money there, why wouldn't you? Why would any publisher think, you know what, this guy's doing really, really well in mass market, let's release it in a more expensive format to a smaller audience? So yeah, it is a shame that the decline has happened. I'm guessing that with the market dropping, there was never going to be a case where a publisher was thinking, well, you know what we'll do, we'll just increase the price of the mass market paperback. People will buy those, especially if the rest of their book collection was this size. In fact, there's a number of books I've got where I've got some authors in this size and some authors in mass market, and in reality I would love to have a set in a single size for an author, not all my books. But I'm probably not going to do that because I quite like the higgledy-piggledy look of the shelf. Yeah, it is a shame. I can see why it's happened, and I can see that it's a two-pronged thing. It's you know, the prevalence of a single format pushed out by the publishers, because if you're not given a choice of what to, well, if you're given less choice, you'll pick what choice you're given. It's not like, you know, you're not you know, you've got your hardbacks, you've got your if you're a hardback reader, there are obviously, otherwise they wouldn't still do them. You've got your trade paperback, and that's your two choices. So it's no longer a case of, oh well, there is the trade paperback, but if I wait long enough, mass market will arrive. You just buy the book that you want. They're not going to die out. Second-hand shops and second-hand book retailers and charity shops, they're going to have them. It's not going to be the type of thing where for an age you would walk into a second-hand shop and they wouldn't be taking VHS because nobody was buying VHS, and now they are, so they are taking them on again. They'll always be around, and I think there'll always be an interest in them, especially for things that aren't available in trade paperback format. Like, I'm assuming this isn't, I haven't looked, but I haven't seen these in a long time. I don't even know if Pan Books are still going. But yeah, you know, like things like this, and there are you know, like if people are getting rid of books, it is a shame. I understand it. I don't have space for all the books I've got. I should really get rid of some of the ones I do, but it's heartbreaking to think, oh, I've got that. Oh, I'm getting rid of it. No. But yeah, that's just me waffling. You're not going to learn anything in these videos, let's face it. But yeah, it's the death of the mass market paperback, and it's a shame. But there aren't protests in the streets over this. There aren't online. There aren't change.org petitions. There probably is. Should have really checked. There isn't a change.org petition. I've decided, unless there is, calling for publishers to row back on this. It's just that people aren't buying them anymore. So why would the publishers continue to push them out? It'll be a sad day when it happens, but it will happen. Well, thanks for watching. That was a jolly video, wasn't it? I'll catch you in the next one. I'm going to talk tech next time, I promise, not paperback books. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, and all the rest of the things. I'll catch you all later. Oh, let's hope the lighting is better in the thumb for this, because, you know, I noticed in the last few thumbs I've done, the lighting on the thumbnail itself has been absolutely awful. But just for the sake of it, this might be the thumbnail. There you go. Thanks for watching.